These last couple weeks, the Lord has been bringing something to my attention, reminding me, whatever you want to call it. And it can be easy to become aggravated at the world, especially when you spend a lot of time in Scripture and you just so desperately want people to know God. You just want desperately for God to be respected, loved back for everything that He's done for us. I would say if you have any negative opinions about the book of Jonah, you might not understand what I'm talking about here. I think Jonah was a man who tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and desperately wanted to see people come to God and see God respected and loved for who He was and who He is. And just one rejection after another, it gets to feeling like somebody's walking in the room and smacking your mother across the face. And I think we misunderstand. I think we saw Jonah in probably a moment that he wasn't entirely proud of, that wasn't fully Jonah, but rather Jonah at the end of his rope after trying for several years, many years. And we can get to arguing about denominations and whether this public figure is doing demonic things or whether we need this person or that person in office, and we can just get to arguing, fighting, and we lose focus entirely over this thing that I'm about to hopefully remind you of if need be, like it was reminded to me recently. And it has almost reset me in my patience. It's like, how could I be frustrated? How could I forget what it was like before I knew God? How could I forget how hard this is? To do this, I want to take us back to the beginning, back to the garden. We don't even know what that feels like. To be complete, to be whole, to not have any want or need in us. Because when we were in the garden, we walked with God. We were made for Him. We had everything we could possibly want or need. We had Him. There He was. There was no distance. There was no sin. We were walking with Him. We had Him close. There He was. Everything was perfect. And then the serpent came, and he introduced doubt and temptation for the first time. We had never felt anything like that. We had never been prepared for anything like that. It wasn't like us, I don't think, rejecting or resisting temptation now, like we know what it is here. It was different. It's the same as like when a child predator looks upon a child and sees that innocence. There's no confusion in him as to what he's about to do. He knows exactly what he's about to do. That's why he's doing it. It was the same thing with Satan in the garden. He saw us as babies, children, complete innocence. Didn't know anything. All we knew was God. That's all we knew. That's all we ever needed to know. There was no reason for us to ever doubt Him or consider that there might be something we're missing out on, right? Had never entered our minds. And Satan came and he took advantage of us, and I'm not taking the weight off of us for doing that. And I say us, not Adam and Eve, us. You would have done it, I would have done it. It's ours. It was us still, of course. We let it happen, but at the same time, it's like we weren't prepared for that. We weren't ready for that. Here's what we don't understand fully. It's like we all know this, but sometime in the last couple weeks, this has been brought to my attention in a way that stuck. When we ate of the tree, and we had to be cast out of the garden, we lost everything. Our hearts were ripped all the way out of our chests. This was worse than losing a parent. This was worse than losing a child. This was worse than losing your best friend or a spouse. This was the worst moment in all of existence. And not just for us, for God too. He was our everything. When we took our first breath and opened our eyes, it was the breath that God breathed into us that we inhaled. He was the first thing we saw. He was the only thing we knew. God was and still is, at our core, more familiar to ourselves than we are to ourselves. We know Him. We know His touch. We know His voice. We know Him on a deeper level than we know ourselves. He's revealing us to ourselves all the time. More and more as you grow. To lose that, I can't imagine the wailing after we had to leave. And it says in Genesis that the water was separated from the water. Water is interesting because everything in this physical world is a copy and a shadow of the heavenly realms. What does that mean? It means that, just as easily as this cup is a copy and a shadow of the desire to carry water. That is how the spiritual realm is expressed in our limited three-dimensional world. Immaterial, invisible desire, temptation, ideas, information. That is how the spiritual realm expresses itself in this one. And it can be expressed physically if I, as a human being, use my free will to take a desire that is immaterial and make it a reality in the physical world. So that's how the spiritual realm expresses itself into our world. Everything in the world is like that. So everything man-made is very easy. You see a phone, you know what desire built that. But when you come and you see the natural world, it's hard for us to really always wrap our minds around it. This is why you have to read Scripture very, very carefully and very deeply, is because these farming allegories are not just telling us something about our world. They're telling us something about God. His fingerprint is in everything. And so everything in the physical realm is a copy and a shadow of the spiritual realm. So threshing, winnowing, farming, planting seeds, all of those things are physical expressions of a deeper spiritual truth. And the same is true for water. And it's interesting because everything in this world is temporary. When our hearts were ripped out of us, when we lost God, when we lost our first love, when we lost the only one we really knew, the only thing in existence that we really felt comfortable and knew or anything, when that was ripped out of us, what was left was a void, a hole, a bottomless hole in us. That most people are at least somewhat aware of. We'll get into those people, how aware are you, the kind of thing of that. But we all know, at the very least, we all act upon this void, whether we are knowingly doing it or not, because you wake up every day and you get up and you are driven by desire. You are motivated by something. You are trying to gain something. Why? We take that for granted. That's not just natural, right? Well, why are we getting up every day? Why do we want? What do we want? Why do we want? And you'll see that whenever people pursue the things of this world, money, success, status, comfort, security, it's never enough. They always want more. Jesus said to the woman at the well, he said, When you drink of this water, you will be thirsty again. But if you were to ask me for living water, you would never be thirsty again. As a matter of fact, this living water would become a well and spring up out of you and pour into other people around you. You know, it takes a while for people to realize this. Usually, you know, young people in their teens and 20s, they're not quite cognizantly aware of this void quite yet. You know, the world is still mesmerizing. It's still a very exciting thing to chase success and money. And some people, that lasts a little longer than others. But most people, once you're in your 30s or 40s, you start to get this feeling in the back of your mind and your heart that, you know, all these things that I'm chasing aren't really cutting it. It's almost like there's a hole at the bottom of my cup. Every time I drink the water of this world, I get thirsty again. It's not just that's not just a physical reality. Again, every physical reality is a copy and a shadow, an expression of a deeper spiritual thing. The water, you will be thirsty again tomorrow. You always need more. Same with spiritually. If you drink of this world, you'll never be satisfied. You'll never reach contentment or the fulfillment. This whole world you see, this man-made world built around you, everything is built upon the desire to fill that void. Everything. Every house that is built, you know, every yacht that is driven, every goal that we have to make a name for ourselves in this world, everything, the whole world, the whole man-made world has been built solely upon that, not desire, that need to fill the void. We can't think of anything else. We can't even imagine what any other type of life would be. All we know is to get up every day and we got to fill this void. We got to feed it. We got to feed it. Because if I don't, I'm going to kill myself, right? I'm going to be done. I can't do this if I don't try to fill it. It's too miserable. It hurts too bad. Everybody is a certain amount aware of this void, right? Oh, where I was going with that whole water thing is, so it says in Genesis that in the beginning God's face hovered over the surface of the deep. Some sort of water. Whatever our physical water is a copy and a shadow of, the best I can come up with so far is that it is he hovered over a sea, an endless sea of infinite, limitless potential. It's the same thing that chaos without order. It's the same thing that when he says that the Gentile nations, the nations that are foreign to me, the people that don't know me, I look upon them like the roaring sea. The same thing. They are a sea of endless potential, limitless potential, but they're chaotic because they have no order. They have nothing. They don't know me. And God is all that is order. And so he spoke into that water. Data, word, information into limitless potential. What did he do? He separated water from water. And everybody's like, that's physical water. I don't think so. I think that at that point he's talking spiritual concepts, spiritual things. So I think that water that he separated, who knows, that maybe that could be the fabric of time, space, you know, whatever that is in the spiritual realm, whatever that water is in the realm that we cannot see. He separated water from water and he created this world within, this limited three-dimensional world within. The garden was somewhere, it was like on the earth, but in a higher dimension, I think. So this is a limited dimension where sin can exist, that is separate from God. He had to create that because sin cannot be in him, right? And so in some fundamental way that we can't really wrap our minds around, he separated himself from himself, created this womb, this cocoon, this three-dimensional fallen world in which we can, why did he create that? So that we have a place to claw our way back to him. Because ultimately, I mean, really, realistically, had he not created that world, the moment we ate that fruit, we'd go straight to hell. Instead, in his mercy, he created this place for us to come back to him. That's all he wants. And then guess what he did? He came into this world himself. Like a knight in shining armor, he came to save his princess at the top of the tower. What did he have to do? He had to slay a dragon to do it. And how did he do that? By sacrificing himself. That's how love fights. You defeat evil, right, by not becoming it. Not letting it become you, not letting it win the argument to the point of death. You know, it's one of the most heartbreaking verses in the whole Bible is after all that, after he lost us and we lost everything, and we had been spending thousands of years sacrificing children to foreign gods and literally doing the opposite of what he created this world for us to do, right? Choosing anybody but him. When he was finally standing there, and the Pharisees wanted him to be crucified, and he was standing there, him, the God that we had lost, wailed over for who knows how long after we had left the garden, the one who is more familiar to us than ourselves. He came into this world, stood in physical form before us, before a crowd. And when the Roman emperor said, "Do you want us to let him go or what? Here's your king." He said, "What's true? Here's your king." And the Pharisees said, "We don't have any king but Caesar." So he was crucified, and he is now our way back. He became the solution to the problem that we created. You know, and the thing is, speaking about this void, what most people do, and myself included before, is we try to find meaning in this world. And that's important to understand, that that's what most people are doing. They know the void's there. At least they know that they want something. They want to make a name for themselves. Whatever they want, they know they want. They know they want, right? You can't miss it. It's like the core of your very life is wanting. And so we look into the world and we try to create meaning. We try to create it. We try to make a name for ourselves, and we try to fill that void with ourselves or with the world and the pleasures of the world. And Jesus said to the Pharisees when they're like, "Well, where's the kingdom of heaven? Where's God?" Jesus said, "You silly gooses. It's not in this world. Why are you looking out here? This world is fallen. This world is where you had to go when you were separated from the kingdom of God. Why would you expect to see it here? It's within you. Hey, why don't you take a look in that place that you least want to look? That void in you." It's so interesting that, you know, that void for most people, it's like an elephant in the room. It's like they're going to look out the window, they're not going to pay attention, they're going to pretend that elephant's not there. And the older you get, the bigger that elephant grows, until at some point it's grown so big it fills the room and it's got your face pressed against the glass. And you're like, "Oh, all I see is the street. There's nothing around here." I also make an analogy of it where it's like humanity is like a herd of cows or a herd of sheep. And most of us are just heads down chomping grass. And when you're unaware of this void, you are aware of the desire to eat grass. And that's about it. And the grass still tastes good, and there's plenty of it. So most of humanity is chomping grass, right? But if you have the courage and the humility to stop eating and lift your head and peer over the backs of the herd to see, hey, what are we doing here? Hey, what's going on? What I'm saying is that's an internal process. You do that inside of yourself. You look at the elephant in the room. Again, it's like we don't want to look at that. And there's reasons for that we'll get into, but it was also said in Haggai, Haggai 1, 5 through 7, it says, "Now this is what the Lord Almighty says, give careful thought to your ways. You have planted much, but have harvested little. You eat, but never have enough. You drink, but never have your fill. You put on clothes, but are not warm. You earn wages only to put them in a purse with holes in it. This is what the Lord Almighty says, give careful thought to your ways." He's saying the same thing Jesus said. Hey, have you noticed that everything you do in this world isn't enough? Have you noticed? Have you bothered to poke your head up and look? Because when you do, when you develop the courage and when you finally decide that you're going to look dead on at that void, there's fear there, we'll get into that too, but when you finally have had enough, usually it takes rock bottom, or there's a few different catalysts for change I've listed here too, but when you finally do and you face that void, the thing is, if you look at it hard enough, you'll see the face of God. You'll see him, whatever form that takes. You'll see the love of the man who jumps on the grenade. You'll see the mercy that would save you. You'll see the truth. Gabriel told Daniel, from the moment that you humbled yourself and sought to gain understanding, we have heard your prayers. The moment you looked into that void and you didn't look away, and you decided to accept whatever it told you back, from the moment you gained that humility and that courage to do that, we've heard you. We've been talking to you ever since. It's so weird that Nietzsche, he was the philosopher that was famous for the quote, "God is dead," and he didn't necessarily mean, I don't think, from my understanding, he didn't mean that like an atheistic. It was almost like oh no, we've killed God in this world. Now what do you guys expect us to do, huh? He was able to see in a nihilistic way that wasn't good. Whether he believed that God exists or not, who knows? He also said something interesting. Nietzsche, a man who was a complicated person, we don't even know if he believed in God, he said that if you peer into the abyss hard enough, you'll notice it's looking back at you. It's the same thing. God's saying, look at your ways. Pay attention. Is this doing it? We have to understand and just try to remember how hard that must have been to leave the garden, and the fact that we are all born in that place, spiritually in that place, where we've been stripped from the one that matters the most to us. Whether a person calls themselves an atheist or whatever, there's a hole in them that they are desperate to fill, and they are terrified to even look at it. Terrified. You were there, I was there, we've all been there. And that's interesting, or it's important to understand that, because we have what the Bible calls the ministry of reconciliation. We carry the message of reconciliation. God's number one goal, again, the whole reason this world was created, was for us to find a way back to him, to be reconciled with him. That's the reason for everything. It doesn't matter what you're looking at, it doesn't matter what you're hearing, everything, this whole world, everything on it, everybody in it, all of this is for reconciliation. In Revelation 10:7, it says that when the last trumpet blows of the tribulation, the mystery of God will be accomplished. And that mystery of God is seen in Ephesians 1, 9 through 10, where it says, the mystery of God, that was purposed in Christ was that God was reconciling the world with himself. That's been his goal from day one. And guess what? We don't remember this because it's been a few thousand years. But that's all we want to. That's our number one goal. It doesn't matter how much money. It doesn't matter if you're under a bridge, brother, sister. I don't care. Who cares? It's not what we're here for. The guy that's sitting on a $1 billion mansion, he's in a tent too. We're all in a tent. We're all in tents. It doesn't matter. We're not here to stay. We're not here for any of this world. The more you have, the more you want. So the whole goal is to look at this void and decide what you're going to do with it. I'll make this part quick because my feet are falling asleep. When it comes to this void, I'm trying to become more organized with my notes and stuff. When it comes to this void, I've sectioned off 3 different types of people, meaning there's really only 3 different types of stances you can have when it comes to this void. Let me show you what that means. The first one is unaware. These people are completely unaware consciously, like in the front of their brain, like they're not aware that there's like this endless void, meaning that they haven't yet discovered the meaninglessness of like money, stuff like that. Almost every person in their 20s is like this because the world's still fresh, it's still exciting, it still seems like a really good idea. They're still convinced that money will satisfy them, or if they get famous on TikTok, that'll satisfy them. They don't understand that that's meaningless yet. They haven't gained any of that themselves yet. So through experience, they haven't got there yet. If you know the story of the prodigal son, there were 2 brothers to a father. The younger brother asked his father for his half of the inheritance early so that he could go out in the world and blow it. And basically his argument was, my meaning is out in the world, not here at this farm with you, Dad. Give me my inheritance before you die and I'm out of here. So, and then later he spent all his money working for basically nothing at a farm, scooping poop. And he found himself desiring the food of the pigs that he was feeding the pigs. And he realized how hungry he was, and he realized in that moment that he had done wrong. That this world isn't doing it for him. It wasn't what he thought it was going to be. And so in that moment, he humbled himself, he repented, and he returned home to his father, who ran out and caught him halfway across the field. That's the story of humanity and God, right? So the people who are unaware are like the prodigal son when he first left home with a bundle of money. The world's still mine. I can do whatever I want. This is awesome. And so they're still chomping grass. I hate to use that analogy, but it's just a good one. I don't mean any insults by that. So the second type of person, there's actually kind of 2 different. I label this type of person, it's called resistant. And there's a couple different like flavors of resistant, right? The first one I wrote was resistant of the void. So these people are the ones who have deep down begun to realize that void in them. They've begun to realize, like, maybe they believed that if I just get jacked, my life will be meaningful. And then they do 3 years later, and then going to the gym's a chore. It didn't like last. Water came out of the bottom of their cup. Or maybe they had a goal for $100,000. They made that $100,000, and they realized it didn't really do what they thought it was going to do, or at least the happiness didn't stay. So, but they refused to accept it. So even though they realize that what they used to do isn't doing it for them anymore, they don't really want to look at that fully, so they just keep doing that thing. They just keep, the guy that now makes $100,000 and he realized that wasn't enough. Now he's like, oh, well, I'm just going to go get more then. He's like, he ignored the prodding, the knocking. That's Jesus knocking. He ignored that. And most people do this for a time. I say they ignore it and keep going through the motions, pursuing the meaningless worldly things anyways. Why? Because they are afraid to face it. I mean, what does that mean to do that? All right, sorry. The tradition continues. I'm way up here on a cliff, and some people just come up here looking for petroglyphs. Never fails. It's a tradition at this point. Okay, so I was saying that the one of the resistant types is people who have begin to, or more than begin to, have known that this void is kind of creeping up on them. They can feel it there for a while, but they don't want to look at it. Why? Because deep down they understand, without even being able to articulate it, they know what that means if they were to look at it honestly. They recognize it for the rock that is to shatter them, a rock that they would, to look at it would be to fall upon it, right? Because here's the thing is, if you accept that this world cannot fill that void, but that's all that matters to you is filling that void, that's terrifying. Because what are you going to do tomorrow then? What are you going to do? Especially if you don't have an answer, if you're never raised around any true born-again Christian, if you have no answer for that, what are you really desiring to do? Or what are you exactly agreeing to do to look at that? Well, you're agreeing to die. Right? And for what? For the truth. And so you have to really care about the truth to look at this void. You have to care about it at least more than your own comfort. You have to care about it more than everything else. And the thing about it anyways is that it doesn't go away if you don't look at it. It just gets bigger. This is why you get people who are, like older people who are just angry because they still don't want to look at it, but it is now so big that it's got their face pressed against the window and they're desperate to see the problem that is in them, in the world, instead of it being them. They're just not willing to accept it. And many people are like that. Many people just are not, and actually never, going to be willing to accept that this world will not fill that void, that they are not allowed, that they will not succeed in filling that void with themselves. Some people, like Satan, that's their bottom line. I'm not willing to exist unless I can be God and I can fulfill myself. That's one resistant type. The other resistant type is, I'll just read what I wrote. These people have come to realize that the message of the world is meaningless, acknowledged it, looked right at the void, said, yep, that's there, and have they've come to the conclusion that life is inherently meaningless. Period. The end. No more searching. There's a void in me. I'm going to look at it. There it is. I'm staring into it. There's no meaning. So these are the people that are usually angriest at Christians. How dare you suggest that there's a real answer to this void? You're just so foolish. You're a child. You're a child if you think that your God can really fill that void. I know better than you. I had the courage to look at the void. And so you are just using, what do you hear it? Oh, what do they call it? The something of the masses, the heroin of the masses or something like that. Basically it's just to make you feel better about the meaninglessness of life. And they're usually the angriest ones when it comes to the meaninglessness. They're angry about it. They're angry that life is meaningless. And so some of them will say you have to create your own meaning. Many of them, they're just not even going to bother. They're just going to smoke weed and play video games or take advantage of people, be real mean, whatever they got to do to get by every day. A lot of them become addicts, myself included. That was me. These are the nihilists. And it's also, I would say, maybe the most common mindset of a person who has committed suicide or is considering it. Pride is very common among these types of resistant people because they can see what others cannot, or what others are not willing to look at. That's true. But this is their great downfall. They have not examined themselves to the same extent that they have examined the world. They have not looked inside of them, the place that they least are willing to look. Why? Pride. They're not willing to accept the possibility that they're the problem and not the world, not the meaninglessness of the world. So really they've looked at the void, but not in a way, they haven't stared into it with the proper heart, with a heart that's reaching. They've slammed the door shut. They've heard the knock and they're not getting up to answer it. Not yet. They have not yet gained the courage or humility to do so, or they have not become desperate enough. We'll get to that. Okay, so you have unawares, resistance, and then finally you have the truth seekers. These are the people who have humbled themselves to gain true understanding, Daniel 10:12. Gain understanding at the threat or expense of their own pride and their current pre-existing understanding and worldview. So they've sacrificed what they thought they knew. They've accepted the fact that they were wrong this whole time. And they've looked at the void with the proper heart. To do this, they turned a microscope into their own hearts, accepting, considering the fact that they could be wrong, and their own ways might be the source of their own suffering and the lack of hope or meaning. It was their fault. They did what Jesus told the Pharisees to do. Look inside of yourself. Consider your ways. Look at yourself, instead of examining just the world on this tiny detail and judging everybody around you for being dumber than you or whatever you think. Look at yourself too. Paul says the same thing about Christians. Examine yourself. Make sure you're even in the faith. Make sure this isn't just your way of being prideful in this world. Make sure you're really going after God to be reconciled to Him at the expense of everything else. Make sure that's true. Because I talked about legalism is false humility, and a lot of people in the church, they're just doing what the Pharisees did. They haven't actually looked at their void and filled it with God. They're still filling it with pride. And it's a very dangerous place to be, because it's just like a doctorate degree, just like somebody who has a doctorate degree in psychology, finding God for real and coming to realize that everything they just learned in psychology was kind of worthless because it's without God. They have more to lose, so to speak. They've put more years into a false doctrine than others. Same thing with people who have been raised thinking they know who Jesus is, but they never have. It's really hard for those people to accept that they've been raised in the faith and they still don't get it. It's hard. But what do you care more about? That's the thing. Do you care more about being reconciled with God or being right? It's not about being right. It's not about the rules. Okay, so unawares, resistant, truth seeker. To me, if you have any others, please put it in the comment, because that's the three categories of people that I can come to think of. And you see that the prodigal son, it's not just three different types of people and you're one of them. It's also a trajectory. We all start off as unaware. And then, at least for a moment, we usually move into resistant. And then hopefully we make it a truth seeker. We make it in. We're born again. Okay, and so there's three catalysts of change that will move you from one to the next, or basically will move you from either unaware or resistant into being a truth seeker, if you so choose. Those three catalysts are rock bottom, what I call the wall, and contemplating death, or the afterlife. So rock bottom, again, the only thing that matters here is being reconciled to God, and God will do whatever it takes in your life to do that, even if that means crushing you. He said in Jeremiah, he said to the people, hey, I've crushed you and you guys still won't look at the void. You still won't do it. You still won't consider your ways. And I've crushed you. There's nothing else I can do. And for people like me, you got to keep stomping on me like a cockroach because I just keep coming back alive and doing the same old thing. He had to crush me many times. Been to jail more times than I can count. Lost more people than I can count. lost everything I own all in a moment, half a dozen times more, over and over and over and over and over. But it's when we were at rock bottom and we realized that it's our own ways, it's the way we live our life that has gotten us there. That's when we become desperate enough, usually, to look inside of ourselves and be like, am I wrong? I'm too miserable to care about the pride. I will look at it because this hurts too bad. That's one way. The wall is just you chase money or you chase status or you chase these things, and then you finally hit that moment where you realize it ain't doing it. That's a wall. Some people break through many walls like the Kool-Aid man. They're like, oh, I'll go to the end of the gym life. Oh, now I'm jacked. I'm part of the no-net club, but it didn't do it to me. So now I'm going to go after money. And then they hit the wall there, and they go after another thing. And that was also my style. Went to the end of every road, it felt like, before I was willing to listen. I went to the end of every road, busted through every single wall, and then got stomped on about 100 times before I finally listened. God said, I had to treat you like an unruly calf. I had to break you. You guys ever seen a horse broken? A wild horse? It ain't fun to watch. It's not pretty. You basically have to drag that horse into the dirt until it submits. It's the same as a dog that's biting everybody. You got to find a way to get it on its back and put your hands around its throat and sit there. And, and then let go of your hand and it goes to bite and you do it again. Until you can lift your hands and step off of it and it stays on its back, right? God has to do that with us. Because He's given us this ball and now we don't want to let Him have it back. We want to snap at His hand when He reaches for it. Okay, so rock bottom, the wall, and then contemplating death. You ever heard the saying that there's no atheist in a foxhole? That's because right over on the other side of this hill is death. So these guys, 18, 19, in their 20s, they're being confronted with death. And you don't have a choice. This happens to every old person, so you don't have to be in a war for this to happen. Just wait a few years. There's an old guy in my Bible study. We just did this study this morning. And I was talking about this, and he's turning 79. Just today, actually. His birthday. And he said, yeah, that really starts to sink in right about 70. You start to realize that, oh crap. And he said by the time you're 75, it's all you can think about. Because your friends are dying left and right. People are losing their wives or their husbands to this or that, and they're right at your age. It's almost like it's like a mini apocalypse for every person. We all have this miniature little apocalypse at the end of all of our lives. And so church pews are filled with old people, and there's no atheists in foxholes. Because to us young people, even if we don't think so, we can say, oh, I'm not afraid of death, but really it's just a myth to you and me. You're looking forward at your life. These people are looking back. They've already lived their life. The only thing on the horizon now is the end, the great unknown. You are not stronger than that. Neither am I. You will contemplate death and the afterlife after that. And you will want to know. So you will look in the void, hopefully. Or you'll just sink into a pit of anger and you'll be like the old lady banging on people's car windows because they did nothing, Karens or whatever. You'll end up like that if you don't. So this is all this is very important to know. Try to keep in mind that this is a reality for everybody. Everybody's missing the one thing they want, God. Whether they know it or not, everybody you come into contact with, you now carry the message of reconciliation as a born-again Christian. I hope this helps you guys like it's helped me. I forgot one more thing. I wanted to tell you the good news. One of my favorite passages in the Bible now. Keeping in mind that moment when we left the garden, hearts torn out of us, having no idea what we're going to do now. And now thousands of years later, here we are, still suffering from it. But this is a scene from the beginning of the millennium, when the dust is settled from the apocalypse. And there he is. Jeremiah 31, 3-9. The Lord appeared to us in the past, saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with loving kindness. I will build you up again, and you will be rebuilt, O Virgin Israel. Again you will take up your tambourines and go out to dance with the joyful. Again you will plant vineyards on the hills of Samaria. The farmers will plant them and enjoy their fruit. There will be a day when watchmen cry out on the hills of Ephraim, come, let us go up to Zion, to the Lord our God, because there he is in person. This is what the Lord says. Sing with joy for Jacob. Shout for the foremost of the nations. Make your praises heard and say, O Lord, save your people, the remnant of Israel. See, I will bring them forth from the land of the north and gather them from the ends of the earth. Among them will be the blind and the lame, expectant mothers and women in labor. A great throng will return. They will come with weeping. They will pray as I bring them back. I will lead them beside streams of water, on a level path where they will not stumble, because I am Israel's father, and Ephraim is my firstborn son. That's where our hope lies, right there in that moment. That's what all this is for. That moment that we can't even control our weeping. Because there he is, he's back. We have him again. We will be wanting of nothing. That void will be filled forever. So keep your hope on that. And I'm speaking, I would say, more to myself when I say this than to you guys. But have patience with people. Check them out. Mountain rams. Oh, he heard me. Wait. They don't mind me one bit over here. I've climbed to the top of that rock. Look how many of them there are. You'll find them back here sometimes, but usually not this many. That's a real treat.